So welcome to Papa 0101, how to demonstrate how to do a log. And for those following in the task guide, this is found on page 139. So first things first, I want everyone to be honest. Who's been faithfully completing the log assignment I gave you back on the very first night? Seeing a couple of hands. Awesome. Oh, I'm seeing a lot of black here.
Definitely need some.
Can everybody turn on their cameras if you can, just so that I know I'm not talking to air?
Sir, do you see me? This is Sergeant Hinton.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
See, I thought I saw you a second ago. Where'd you go?
What's going on?
I don't even see your name anymore. Uh-oh. Yeah, I see your name. But I'm not seeing your.
Trying to figure out what I've done wrong here.
That's okay. Okay, so who wants to put their log up to the camera and show me?
Guilty as charged. I didn't get mine done yet.
Okay, fair enough.
I was hoping to learn about how to do it tonight.
We're going to talk about, well, actually, we talked a little bit about the introductory to it, but we're going to go through it again tonight. Yep. Okay, so as I've been stating, this exercise was to get you into a habit of logging. I didn't care what information you were writing down, just that you were writing down information. And I'm relying on everyone's integrity here, and every entry should at least have a date and a time, and it should be legible to you at least. Okay. If you did that, our poor Thanos here and you can rest assured that it's all good. All right. So anybody want to share their log? Not just show it, but anybody want to share their log? How many entries? Don't have to go through it all, but how many entries they made? If they did date and time. Nobody brave enough?
Mine's on the line. Let me see if I can share it.
Okay. I think I'm gonna have to stop sharing for you to do that. Let me know if you've got it, and we can go from there.
Captain Boyer.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm from a military service, but I was in a habit of keeping an ad hoc log. You know, like I always kept a notebook, something I could put in my cargo pocket, and keep a running log of what I was doing. And sometimes the form, like the military would have required you to keep an official log, but you're in a field environment and you may not have had the paperwork. So, just keep the ad hoc log. I'm one of those that's guilty of not keeping up with a 214. However, if I had to fill it out, I could do it because I've been keeping logs every time we, logged in.
That's what, that's what I wanted. That's what I want. Just so that you're familiar with the form, and that you were, as I said, the exercise was making sure that people were getting into that habit. So,
Okay, I can share. I've got my screen up. I can share.
Okay, I'll let you go do that briefly here. Oh, I can see you now, Sergeant Hinton. I don't know why you're not on that other list, but when I go full tilt, I can see you.
Someone shared on a written notice that there's something to do with the bandwidth or something.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, so somebody's having difficulty if they put their camera on, it gets choppy, so that's fine. That's why I said, if you can have your, if you can get your camera on, it just lets me know that I'm not talking to air. I've got 7 people here that I can actually see, so that's good. All right.
Yeah, that's me over here with the packet loss issue. It's on my end. It's not through Zoom or nothing. Just I'm in a different location with pretty meager internet. Lucky to have it at all.
Yeah, no problem, Captain. Glad you can join us.
Can you see my share?
I can, yes.
I was using the ICS standard of, one form, an operational period was 1 day. So each day is a separate log sheet.
Yep. And yeah. Perfect. But as we can see, we've got under the notable activities, you've got the start time, starting session, ending session, start session, end session, start session, end session. You don't need to create a novel. You just want to be putting in the pertinent information on the log, right? So that's awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that.
but it still reminds me of a lot of a staff duty journal that would have kept on active duty.
Yep.
Like a formal.
All right. So this is another version. So we've got the version I showed you before, the version that we just saw now, another version, but they're all ICS 214s. All right. It's a little different than the one I showed you at the beginning of the course. And the point I'm making is that there are several variations that can be found on the web. Find one that you are comfortable with. There is a cap version, but I have noticed that not all wings use the same version as well. I know, so this is why we need to be knowledgeable of the different types of forms, because at the end of the day, they're all doing the same thing. As long as they are named ICS 214, that's that's your daily log entries for your group. Okay. Now, if you don't want to download something, ask your ES officer for what he or she recommends. Okay, so again, Michigan Wing has not come down with a specific one that we are to use, but we should be using something that is ICS 214 approved. It's a good idea to have it on file so that you can put it in your flight binder. And again, I have my flight binder here, that where I can put all my information. I bring a pen with me that I can just write on my plastic and then erase it at the end of the mission and start again. And again, in my case, I have laminated it. I write on the laminate with a fine point dry erase marker. I can scan it. I can take a picture of it. Either way, I upload it into Wimmers and do that with all my other paperwork. And tonight we're going to look at the various types of logs, but we're going to concentrate on 2 specifics, the 214 and the 109U. So in Wimmers, there are several electronic logs that are filled in by various individuals responsible for administrating the mission. You'll see that there are command logs, operation logs, planning logs, logistic logs. Pretty much everything that is part of a mission gets logged. Here's an excerpt of the flight release officer's log. One thing is missing. Can anyone spot it?
Signature.
Signature, exactly. All logs contain a signature, whether it's electronic or hard copy. Here's an example of a 109U log, which we're going to take a look at more in depth a bit later on tonight. This is what you use for all of your flights. You'll note that all try that again. All logs have some things in common. The date and time are always present. It may be together, it may appear in separate fields, but there's always a timestamp. The event taking place and the location. After you see enough logs, you'll note that a location is always listed. The name of the individual filling out the log, and if the person filling it out changes, that's always annotated. That may be a situation where instead of everybody filling out a log, you have a common log for the team. So depending on who is putting the entry in, you would always note that the different person is doing it if that is the case. So let's take a look at some of the specific logs, starting with our mission-based logs that we see in WIMMERS. Each of these will include the following. Again, the time, date, the name of the unit supervisor and the individual keeping the log, notes from the initial briefing, the time and the time and notes from the staff meetings, and significant events, actions taken, directions received or provided. Apart from the things found common to all these logs, these have a couple more elements. Again, as I said, we have the initial briefing notes and a diary of significant events and actions taken, as well as any direction that is given to the field units or received from higher authority. This is the information we would report as part of our ground ops. Anytime we depart or return to a mission base. Routes taken to and from a search area. Times of entering and leaving a search area. Anytime the search line changes direction. Times and locations of any clues detected or witness interviews. Time, location of any of those finds. The time and location of communication checks. Any event or action related to the team's ability to complete the sortie requirements, such as natural hazards encountered or injuries to team members. Encounters or instructions from local authorities. Encounters with the media. Mileage or flight time at key intersections, such as when leaving pavement or arriving at other key locations. We'd be more concerned with the mileage of using a vehicle. Time of distress beacon or other emergency signal acquisition. The times distress beacon located and silenced, if that's what we're looking for. Also, if available, the names and the organizations of persons involved in silencing the distress beacon. The manufacturer, the serial number, dates of manufacturer, battery expiration, any vehicle information that we're using, including the name of the owner. Personnel assignments to and from the team unit. Basically, you are recording everything you do and when you do it. If you sneeze, you log it. What log would you use for all this information?
214.
The 214, exactly. So this is the standard log used by 99% of all incident command units in the United States. So let's create a little bit of a log. We start with the header information. Once that's complete, we're ready to start logging our activity. You'll see a lot of things. We just went through them all. Basically, what you are doing is this. I should be able to recreate everything you did based on your log. Everybody understand that?
Yes,
So
That's- Go ahead.
all the main topics are based on the information in P 0101 under item 3 that you've got listed on the slide here. Those all go in section 7 of the activity.
That is correct.
Okay, so the notable activities are all of those items.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that's why we do all this is, as I just said, we want to be able to recreate what a team did if we have to. Okay, so that's ground ops. Okay, that's our ground ops portion is logged and a member of our team is acting as the log keeper, so we're all good. We're about ready to put our SUAS in the air. What do we need to log? Who logs it? What do we use? But you're going to say, we are part of ground team. Why are we reviewing? But why are we reviewing aircrew operations? Well, I'm going to reveal it all.
to make sure everybody on the same page again.
What's that?
Just to make sure everybody on the same page again.
Yes, exactly. We are part of ground ops, but we also fly. So the regulations state that all aircraft must be logged, and that's why we need to know both. So let's take a look at what we need to log. Lots of stuff. And lucky for us, we don't have to remember this list. We have a form that's specifically for SUAS flights that we fill out, which logs all of this information. It's fantastic. It's called the 109U. Ta-da! Before we take a closer look at this, let me remind you that if you haven't downloaded the material found in the SUS section of the national website, you should do it as soon as possible, because we are more and more now going to be referring to it. I promised you a couple weeks ago I was going to stop giving you links, because I figure by now you've had it enough times, you know where to find it. So page 1 is where you're going to log your general information. Your sortie number, your mission number, your date, who's the PIC, the ORM score. Remember we talked about the ORM matrix. What score did you have? Who is your flight release officer? So what do you put here? Some of this will most likely be included on your 214, but you still want it here because remember, this is a record of all your flights. So this is where you're going to put your briefing details, the names of the crew members, if you have communications checks, any significant weather, turbulence, anything that you might encounter that way. Any crew changes if there's any. This is where you want to log that. So here is where we log the remainder of that information, as well as a few other things. Before we drill down and take a closer look, you'll note that an SUAS sortie can have several flights. It's not like a manned aircraft, which requires a sortie for every takeoff and landing. Does anybody have any questions about that before we continue?
Is there a specific definition of a sortie?
A sortie is the definition that is used for SUAS purposes is any time that we are asked to put an SUAS in the air. I've actually filled out a 109U where I went out, we did a training mission, and ultimately There were no flights because at no time was I able to actually put the SUAS in the air. I just uploaded page 1 of the 109U stating that it was either due to weather or due to other circumstances. I could not make any flights. But a sortie, so when we go out on a mission and we're asked, we could be at 5 different locations, but anytime we leave, that's a sortie.
Sir, I had a question, Captain Borger.
Yes.
Yes, sir, I had a question, like I launched a drawing, you know, it's time to change a battery and I bring it back, change the battery. Did the sortie end when I had to land it and rechange the battery?
Nope. The flight ended though.
Right.
So now you're going to go, if that was flight 1, now you're going to put, when you take off again, you're now going to put, that's going to be flight 2.
Okay.
Okay. And that's why a sortie for us, because otherwise we would have, you know, if we're going up 20 times, that would be 20 different sorties. They don't want us doing that. So what we've done is we say a sortie can have several flights to it for SUAS purposes, because we're only flying 10, 15, 20 minutes
Right.
at a time.
Okay.
So again, I go back to the mission that Colonel Bomer and I had, but now would be about 3 weeks ago, where we had to go to 5 different dams in the Traverse City, Cadillac area, and we actually went up 4 out of the 5 times. So each time that we put the SUAS in the air, that was a different flight. Now the irony is that when we did that, we actually used 2 different SUASs. We used the XD2 and we used the Skydio 2. So that's why when we get into the nitty gritty of this, I'm going to show you how that happens and why you're logging that. And it is, again, I was the pick on one, he was the pick on another flight, and we just did it that way. So yeah.
Is that recorded as a 1 sortie with two units or 2 sorties?
It's 1 sortie with 1 unit, and then the unit determines how many flights and who was in charge of those flights.
Even though you're using 2 drones?
That is correct. Because we log it in the brief that we're using 2 drones.
Gotcha.
Excellent question.
Also, when you do that, you're going to make sure you put the right aircraft number in there. That's the key.
That is the key. Exactly. So like I said, every time we take off, it's a flight. And you will make several flights in a sortie. There are many reasons for landing and taking off. We've just had one, battery drain. What's another reason? Somebody give me some other examples of why we would be landing and taking off again.
Wind's too high.
Wind's too high, so we're going to hold off for a bit. Yep.
Weather, rain.
Rain.
Change of crew.
What's that?
Change of crew.
Change of crew.
You detect a
Now,
mechanical.
let me clarify that. Change of crew, meaning the crew stays the same, but our duties have changed. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, yes. One person can be tired.
Yes, exactly.
You detect a mechanical or some kind of error and you have to bring it back.
Mechanical error. Exactly. Yep. And then there's the one that I just talked about. Change of venue. Right? Fatigue. And which could go hand in hand with that change of crew members, right? Hey,
Yes.
you know what? I can't fly anymore. My eyes are cross-eyed, but I'll tech for you.
I'm safe.
I am safe, exactly. All right. So you'll note that some of this form can be filled out prior to a flight, and some of it needs to be done after the flight. Some of it will be filled out immediately. Some of it you may have to wait until you get back to base or back to your computer, if it's in the car, or back to home. So it's one of those, this is again where you might want your 214 to refer back to as well. So let's go over this one field at a time. The date, pretty self-explanatory, should be filled in before the flight. Description of the flight. Descriptors might include search and rescue, demonstration, disaster relief, airborne photography. Gee, where have we heard these words before, right? The type of flights that we have. Proficiency, counter UAS. Right, so refer back to the notes that we had on PAPA 5103. If the general description is already listed on page 1, you would then use this field to further describe. So for example, on page 1, you went and you said, we are examining the Lorne Bridge for damage after a severe flood. So now under my description type, it's going to be left side of bridge facing south, or some other descriptor that tells me what I'm looking at. And again, this is all part of that documentation that we discussed in PAPA 2015. Again, this is filled out prior to the flight if we can. So here's where we're going to be listing the crew. If the crew changes for flight 2, the new crew gets listed under flight 2. So pilot, technician, technician. If you have more than 2 technicians, write them all down, or as long as you've got 2 of them there, that's all we really need. In your 214, you're going to list who the other technicians were. Okay, and again, this comes in really handy if there's 2 mission pilots and 2 techs on the team, and you're trading off. This log will let you and others know who flew which flight. So if there's 4 of you on the team, 2 of you are mission pilots, 2 of you are techs. Well, technically, you could have 1 pilot with 3 techs on flight 1. A different pilot with 2 of the techs will be the same. 1 of them will now be changed. Or you might be using 1 pilot with 2 of the techs while somebody went to the bathroom. Who knows? But this is where you log your crew. And remember that the pilot in charge is the one responsible for the flight. This is why it's important to list who's doing what. And again, typically this is going to be completed before the flight. Aircraft number, again, pretty self-explanatory, but remember, as Captain King just said, you got to make sure you put the right number down, because sometimes our FAA numbers may be just one letter or one digit off different. So remember, by law, all SUASs over 0.55 pounds or 250 grams are registered with the FAA, which means all our mission SUASs will be registered. We're not going to be doing a mission, right? We're not going to be doing a mission with a tello. If we're doing a demonstration flight, our aircraft number will be what? Let's say we're doing a demonstration flight with a tello. We still have to file the 109U for that. What are we going to put in that field?
The serial number to the Apollo.
Yeah, or are we going to leave it blank?
Registration number.
Yeah, but we don't have a registration number for a tello. They don't
Oh,
weigh
it's
0.5
below.
pounds.
Not registered, so you don't just put not applicable.
Right. The last thing we want to do is what?
Leave it blank.
Leave it blank. You got it. So we don't want to leave it blank. Make sure that we have put something in there if it's not registered. Okay. And by that same token, you cannot use a personal SUAS if it is not registered. And now, when I'm talking about that, if you're using your own personal tello for a demonstration purpose, wonderful. But I'm talking about you have a Mavic. You need to fill out the proper paperwork. It must be registered with the FAA. Otherwise, you cannot fly it for CAP. And again, this is one of those things that can be filled out prior to the flight. Again, pretty self-explanatory. The model, now again, aircraft number, NA, aircraft model, tello. Aircraft model, Skydio 2. Skydio XD, X2D. Phantom 4. Just want to make sure that you log which aircraft you were using. And again, this is what I was saying when we did our flights for the GLR exercise. The two that we used were the X2D and the Skydio 2.
Are there standard abbreviations like there are for aircraft?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, you don't have aircraft model is going to be probably going to be like DJI Mavic or just Mavic. We all know that Mavic is, most people are going to know what that is. Mavic, Parrot, Skydio. The reason you want to be defining the Skydio 2 as opposed to the X2D is because one is a complex drone and the other one is what we call an off-the-shelf drone. And so they require a different acknowledgement in e-services for you to fly them. Okay. So another field you'll want to fill in before the flight is this one. Whoops, I think there we go. Battery number. This is not so important if you have only one battery. In that case, it's easy. Battery 1. But in many cases, you're going to have more than one battery and you need to play battery bingo. It's important that each battery is labeled, because if they aren't, it's going to be difficult for you to establish which battery was used during which flight. This is important because batteries can only be used for so many flights or charges. They wear down. By keeping track of your batteries, you will not be caught short when the need arises. If someone is able to record the takeoff time immediately, great. If not, you'll want to note the time in either your memory files or on your checklist or on your arm. But you're going to have to write it down at some point on here. So I don't care where you get it from, as long as you know what it is so that you can fill it in when the flight is completed. If you get a chance to fill it in immediately before you take off, great. Note the landing time. And obviously this is going to have to be done when the flight is over. I don't know about you guys, but my crystal ball broke about 3 months ago. So I can't tell you what time my landing time is until it actually happens. Okay, the ground control station will always tell you the battery power remaining. This is to be noted at the end of every flight. We want to see how much battery was remaining. Because again, we're going to still use, if we've still got 79% battery remaining, we may want to still continue using that battery on flight number 2. And then we'll drain it down to 43% or whatever number. Then when we get too low, then we're going to pull out battery number 2. And finally, the number of images. An image is any digital rendering. That includes pictures and videos. So if you are flying and creating a video, and that's all you did, then the number would be 1. If you snap 2 pictures while you were up there, then the number would be 3. 1 video, 2 pictures. 1 + 2 = 3. At least it did back when in my days when I took math. Of course, this is this is one field that you may have to wait until you get home or mission-based command, and you have to download your card to see what the number is. Now, if you're lucky, some ground, depending on what SUAS you have in the air, some ground control stations may tell you how many images you've taken. But in other cases, you as I said, you may have to wait until you can actually download the card and find out what you actually took. Because sometimes you may have taken more than you thought. Especially if it was a pre-programmed flight. I do a pre-programmed flight for an ortho mosaic where it's snapping a picture every 2 seconds. I really don't know how many pictures it's taken until I download the numbers. Until I download them, I can't see whether I've taken 100, 200, whatever. Make sense?
It's the
Makes
gross
sense.
it's the gross number of video cycles or photos taken versus what's the customer ends up with as a final product.
Correct. Absolutely. Because again, when we go back to the raw data, remember we're creating those subfolders. When we go back to that raw subfolder, if your 109U has 4 flights and the number of images add up on all 4 of those flights to 83, and there's only 81 pictures in your raw folder, you know there's might be a problem.
Sir, this is Sergeant Hinton again. I know when I take photos, let's say for commercial or volunteer reasons, just one flight in a 30-minute flight, I could have up to 140
Yes.
photos taken. But I may only hand over 10,
Yep.
to the customer that wants it. But you're saying that the overall the 140 should be written in there in this.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly, because that's the other reason why we are doing it. We want to monitor what we have. For example, here's a perfect example of what we're talking about here. If I'm asked to do an ortho mosaic, right? Remember, what is an ortho mosaic? It's a stitching of several different smaller pictures into one big picture. What I'm handing over to the client is one picture, right? The ortho mosaic. I'm only handing over one product, but in reality, I had to take 143 pictures to get that. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So that's why we want to list the number of images. Again, it's a backup for us to say, oh, according to the 109U, I should have, 27 images for the 4 flights. Well, I've only got 23. Oh, right. I got I took 4 videos. Got it. Or on the other side of things, I know I only hit that button 25 times, but I've got 26 photos. What's going on? Well, when I review the photos, I can see, oh, that's why I accidentally snapped this one twice. So I can amend that number if I have to.
One question on this form. I thought on the, when you were going in the list, they talked about logging engine start, which doesn't really, to me, make a lot of sense with the SUAS, but on here, they're only logging takeoff time and landing time, which seems illogical.
Takeoff time is your engine start time. Again, keeping in mind that they're pulling from the aircraft, the manned aircraft side of things. And when they're telling us what we need to keep track of for aerial purposes. So in our purpose for an SUAS, takeoff time is the time that we are going to be, we've started the engines. That's our takeoff time, whether we want to state the actual takeoff time is the time that we push that stick up, or whether the time that we actually start the engines. When we get to the checklist, you're going to see at what point we can't even start the engines until we've completed a series of checklists. And then at that point, in my case, I've actually amended my checklist so that my technician actually gives me permission to take off in order to do my flight checks. And then until that's done, they don't even hand over, and I use that in quotes. In my case, it's like the bird is yours until until my technician actually releases me to do what I need to do. I am still in checklist mode. So for us, the purposes of engine start is takeoff time. It only makes sense. We're not going to start our propellers and just let it sit there for 10 minutes. Typically, when we start our propellers, it's because we're ready to take off. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, when I'm keeping a ad hoc or freehand log, I normally write the weather too, like like the observations just before I took off, what the hourly observation was.
Right.
And like every hour, that I'm flying, that I'll write another observation down. I mean,
Yeah, and that would be something that you would put in here.
okay, sir.
Right? Significant weather, turbulence, other. So that you're going to put that on page 1.
Okay, sir.
Okay. And then finally, we've got the number of images. And there we go. And of course, if there's more than one flight that takes place in the sortie, you just continue to the next entry on the form. So it automatically will go to flight number 2, flight number 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. The 109U is designed to record 18 flights. Of course, if you fly more than this number on a sortie, you just get a second form, make the adjustment by treating it as an error, cross out the flight number, and enter the new number. So you print off your booklet again, where it says 1, you're going to stroke that out, put 19, because you have to take a 19th flight. So you've now completed your sortie. You've completed your logs. What do you do with it?
Download it to your.
Load it to Wimmers.
Exactly. Now you need to scan, take a picture, whatever is the appropriate way for you at this point. You need to upload that into Wimmers. And that's actually easier than it sounds. We're in e-services. We're going to click on menu. Then we're going to click on operations. Then click on Wimmers 2.0. That will bring us to the screen with the list of all the CAP missions, current and past. We find the mission we need, and hopefully we've already written that on our 109U, so we know what to do when we want to filter the missions below, right? So 22 dash whatever in this case. Not sure if everybody is aware of this, but our missions, The first two numbers actually denotes the year that the mission is being completed. Then it goes to 21, or then dash, then there's the letter, and then there's the mission number. So anything that's being done right now in 22 is going to start with a 22 dash alpha dash tango dash what's the other one? Charlie. Okay, so it could be any one of those. Could be a Bravo. So we find the mission we need, we click on it. We're not going to learn how to do that search tonight because it's pretty self-evident. You filter, you go. I'll be showing you how to do that in another session on how to create the sortie. For tonight's purposes, I want to show you how to upload your log. So we're going to pretend we got lucky and the first mission at the top of the list is the one we're participating in. Okay. Any questions on getting into Wimmers? Okay, let's move on. So we've entered our mission. And again, we're pretending that we already created our sortie. And so now we need to find it to enter our log. Remember, presently all SUAS sorties are treated as ground sorties. So we click on Edit View Ground Sorties, which brings us to our list of sorties, which pertain to that mission. We find our sortie. In this case, we're going to go to G0031 and click Edit. Now we're in the sortie. We click on sortie files right there. You'll get this pop-up. We're going to click on the select folder chevron because every time we upload, we need to make sure it goes to a folder. To upload the 109U, click on CAPF 109U. Click on the browse, which will open up your file browser. And after you choose the file you want, you know the one that you scanned earlier. Yeah, that one. That's what you're gonna put that in there. So after you choose the file, it will now show the file name beside the browse button. And oh my goodness, I just realized that I lost a form. So it's going to show the browse button right where it says no file selected. That's where that circle is. That will now reflect the file that you scanned. And you're now ready to click the upload file, which would be that circle right there. There we go. So it looks like that. And that's it. You're done. It's the same procedure for any other document you upload. Choose the folder, then the file. If one of the preset folders is not what you want, then click Add Folder to create one. Okay, a new box will open up that will allow you to give it a name. So here's your 214 log. Then continue as you did before by clicking Browse to get the file and then upload it. Before we get to the quiz link, are there any questions?
So then this question would be, you would get all the information off the drone system and upload that onto a laptop or device, and then log into Wimmers to upload those and browse your file that you had on your hard drive. Or
yes,
laptop.
Exactly. You might want to ask ICS if they want all your photos up as part of the mission, or if they, you know, how they want to do that. They may ask you to print off a contact sheet of the photos and upload them. I've actually had that.
Okay.
So that's something that is going to depend on IC, and you just ask them what you want to do. If otherwise, if you're being asked to upload all of the pictures, you upload all the pictures. If you're being asked to just upload the pictures that went to the client, then you're just going to upload the pictures that went to the client. And when you do that, as one of the I'm going to go back here, as one of the folders, you'll see that photo and product are there. So they may ask you to do all of the photos. If you're doing an ortho, all 143 photos are going to get uploaded here. Under product, you're going to upload the actual ortho mosaic.
What is the time frame to turn everything in?
That depends on IC. When we did what ironically, and again, the assumption was made that we had access to everything and that we were close by to everything. When we did the GLR exercise, we were asked to have all photos uploaded 2 hours after leaving the site. Luckily, Colonel Bomer had his computer, and I have an unlimited data plan.
So you got to be, so you need to be pretty prepared then. You need to have all your technology with you.
So in some cases you may, in some cases you may, you know, it may be a question of, sir, ma'am, why don't I do that when I get back to IC headquarters? Again, communication is always the key, right? All right. So I placed the link in the chat. And for those watching the video, the link has been up there. So this quiz has a portion where it's asking you to put things in order. So it's going to take about 15 minutes to complete.